Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith, Pennsylvania editor for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. This week, Anthony talked to Senator Gene Yaw in the state Senate about a legislation that he wants to advance this year to tax Pennsylvania's skill games. Now, skill games are different than your regular video gaming terminal machines in the sense that it requires users to pay attention instead of just hitting a randomized button. And so Senator Yaw says that by not taxing these and creating a regulatory framework to not only protect the operation of these machines and the small businesses that are offering them, but to reap money back to the state, he says we're leaving roughly $300 million on the table. So, Anthony, can you talk a little bit more about what Senator Yaw wants to do here?
Yeah, so essentially looking at skill games, they operate in either a legally gray area, or if you're a bigger opponent, it's a form of illegal gambling. These machines don't fall under the current gambling laws, essentially because they're games of skill rather than games of chance, like a slot machine would be. Basically, this is related to when someone plays it, the timing of when they hit a button can affect the outcome, that sort of thing. And, they've spread across the state, and they're fairly numerous and popular. There's anywhere between 20,000 to 70,000 of these machines. You can find these at, bars, restaurants, convenience stores. There's a lot of different places that these operate in. But as a result, because they're not under the current gambling laws, it doesn't fall under that tax structure, which is generally a little heavier. Like if you're looking at traditional slot machines, I believe the tax is something like 55% on slot machines there. And this is also relevant because when you're looking at some of these manufacturers of these skill games, there's a few of these in Pennsylvania. I believe there's a fairly big one within Senator Yaw's Senate district up in northern Pennsylvania. So clearly, there's some push to do something about this. This has been something that's been bounced around in the General Assembly the last couple years. Nothing has specifically advanced just yet, but there's been some controversy over them simply because the skill games industry has donated money to various politicians, both Republicans and Democrats. A couple years ago, when some journalists were questioning state politicians who received these donations, a number of them returned them, though Yaw did not. Yaw received, I believe it was something like 10 or 15,000. Not a huge amount, but still something in his pocket. So Yaw refused to return them in the past, as did the House Republican Campaign Committee, though a number of Democrats and Republicans did return their donations. So the idea here is get a more legal regulatory environment to cover these skill games, and then the state can bring in a higher tax revenue. Yaw estimates that could be around $300 million a year. Whether that's accurate, I would say it's probably at least a significant amount of money that could come in through here. But I don't think, partially because this operates in the legal gray area, that we have a good handle on just how much that could be. But we've seen a lot of state tax money, state tax revenue coming in from different legalized forms of gambling. So it's one of those things that remains to be seen. And it's also one of those things where we'll see if this is finally the year where we get some more straightforward state regulations on these skill games.
Certainly precedent for legalizing different forms of gambling in Pennsylvania. We have casinos, we have games of chance, as you said. So it seems like the obvious next choice is regulating these skill games. And a lot of them are located in social clubs, small businesses, places that have said that these games really helped keep them afloat, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that they keep people coming in because a lot of people enjoy playing them. So $300 million, whether that's a low estimate or a high estimate, given the fact that I don't think we have a full grasp of how prolific these machines are and how much they really could generate. $300 million, though, is nothing to sneeze at. We have budgetary constraints and concerns that money could expand food stamps benefits. It could go to public schools. It could repair roads and bridges. There's a lot of places in our state budget where that $300 million could go far. So to Yaw's point, we need to consider everything. And I think that in an administration that is positioning itself as more moderate, I would be curious to see if there's a discussion that could happen here. Now, historically speaking, the opposition to this has been pretty strong. And so even within the Republican Party, so we will see how far it will get. But you also reported that aside from the revenue that's being left on the table, without a legal framework, it kind of puts the businesses that run or offer these things in jeopardy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you've looked over the past few years due to these things operating kind of, are they legal, are they not? We've seen instances where police have, raided businesses and seized these skill games. And in a couple cases, you've seen county courts rule that police have wrongfully seized them and were ordered to return them to the businesses. So I think nothing else, whether they go full, these things can't operate at all or completely bring them into a framework where they're legal and they're taxed. I think it'd be a good move to clarify one way or the other whether these can exist and in what parameters. Otherwise, we're getting some touchy situations with police raiding businesses.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Anthony Hennon, this is Kristen Smith. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.